We need a name for the podcast, and I was thinking we could go with something just kind of completely innocuous in that, and I was just thinking like that one sports podcast,
Yeah,
just something
yeah, I
simple.
like it.
That one sports podcast.
If
Hey,
if
you listen to
something
that
comes
sports?
to me,
You listen to that podcast? Which podcast? That sports podcast. What sports
yeah,
podcast? That sports podcast. Oh,
yeah,
you mean that sports podcast? Yeah, I'd watch that. I'd listen to it. It's pretty cool.
yeah. Pretty soon, people would be like, "It's that sports podcast."
Exactly. Exactly.
So we got some work to do first before we do that, and
All right. So thank you for watching another episode of That Sports Podcast. I'm Brandon, and always with me is Anthony. Anthony, say hello to everybody.
hey everybody, great
All
to be
right.
here again. Let's go.
All right. Let's get this fucking thing started. I am so upset with everybody talking about this Brittany Griner situation because it's this whole woe is me. Everybody should rush to her aid and this, that, and a third. And it's bothering me. It really is because, first of all, for anybody who doesn't know, Brittany Griner was over in Russia. She may or may not have had some vape pens on her with some hash oil, and she got busted. Now she's being detained. No one seems to know where she is. There's all this big fuss about it. People are upset. Some people are like, we don't care. I'm part of the crowd that says this. Okay. She had no business playing basketball over in Russia. Period. I don't care what anybody says. That's how I feel about it. And anybody who has a problem with that can talk to me about it all they want. They can present whatever sob story they want. But the truth of the matter is Brittany Griner was set to make $200,000 plus $1,000. I think it was like $221,000 this year. She was set to make in her pro career. When you boil that down after taxes, she's probably taken home probably around maybe like between 13 and 15K a month. That's per month. She's making between 13 and 15K. Right? How much money have you ever made? The most money you've ever made in a month, Anthony, is it less than $5,000?
Yeah,
All right. So I really don't want to hear her fucking sob story, right? Like I've never made more than $4,000 a month. That's before taxes, right? Like before taxes, I probably barely touched $4,000 a month. And yet she had to go over to Russia being allotted $15,000 a month. And no, I'm sorry, I don't buy it. It sounds like a bunch of bullshit.
yeah. I mean, listen. There are other players. Diana Taurasi went over there, played for the same team. Sorry, Ekaterinburg was the team that Griner was playing for. Apparently, they're owned by Russian oligarchs who are willing to pay their players, many times what they make in the WNBA. And, she's over there to make some more money. And I understand that. But, here is the nightmare situation that she ran into here, and you're in a country that is still hostile to the United States. And, there's a dictator over there. So, it's a very, right? It's a very tense situation that she put herself in just to make some extra bucks, Brandon.
It really is. I mean, there's no, like I said, I don't care whether Russia planted it on her or not. I don't care whatever scenario you put in there. Had she not taken her ass over there to go play basketball, she wouldn't be sitting over there now. She would not be looking at 10 years in Russian prison for what? We wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation had she not taken her ass over to the over there to go play basketball. And for those people who are like, oh, women have to go over there and play basketball and stuff like that, it's bullshit. And we can, and then the people are like, oh, well, the women need to be paid the same as men, and they wouldn't have gone over there. Where the fuck does that money come from? See, this is why people are talking out of their asses, because they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They think that the WNBA and the NBA are the same thing and that they share revenue streams. They don't. The NBA has been around for 75 years and generates $8 billion of revenue per year, whereas the WNBA has been around for 25 years and generates $60 million per revenue a year. I'll be generous and say maybe even 70 million, $60 to $70 million a year per annum. That's what they're getting. Now, nobody ever thinks about all the money that has to be paid to the people who have to run it, the stadium, the cleaning people, the concessions, all the money that has to go into just putting on the event. Then they have to pay the taxes. They have to pay the property taxes. They got to pay the electricity bills, the utility bills that go along with owning that facility. That's not a cheap number. That's not a small fucking number. And people keep in the way these things keep going up and up and up, it's just going to keep on inflating. Then every time a pro athlete asks for a big salary or a huge contract, what happens? Over the next couple of years, you start seeing those ticket prices and those jersey sales and all that kind of stuff. The jersey prices, they just go up. They keep going up and up and up. When is enough enough? I read an article today. I was doing some research today. Ticket prices have gone up an average of 3%, almost 4% every year since like 1967. Yes, sorry. Ticket prices, all sports, all across the board, it averages 3% per year. So what does that tell you? That means that every year these people have been asking for more and more money, and that's where that extra 2% of inflation comes from. Because I get the supply and demand, right? More people want to go to the games, increase the ticket prices. That warrants at least 1 to 2 over 60, 70 years or whatever it is, 75 years, that at least increases to like a 1%, 1.5%, almost 2%. But you're talking about a whole 3% plus. And then you're talking about in the last, let's say 15 years, salaries have shot up. We're talking record-breaking salaries within the last 15 years. Those outliers, those skew those numbers. So where is the WNBA supposed to get all this extra money so that they can pay Brittany Griner $50 million a year? 3 NBA players right now have contracts on a single team that total the entire revenue that the WNBA makes. If they were to pay some WNBA, where's the rest of the money for the rest of the WNBA going to come from? It's coming straight out of our pockets. And they don't care because all they want is their money.
Yeah, I think what it comes down to for a league like the WNBA is that, if the average player wants their salary to go up, again, they have to make the league more popular through, making the games more exciting, steady influx of talented players like Brittany Griner, like Candace Parker, who we've seen in the past and stuff like that. But there need to be more of them, I actually met Lisa Leslie once. She was one of the most famous ones, right? She's been in movies too. So, there's an example of one WNBA star who has, used her popularity outside of the game to her advantage. So that's something that, Brittany Griner needs to look into. She's 6'9". I don't think there's many WNBA players who are as tall as her or anywhere close, to be honest. There's definitely, I would say like for a center in the WNBA, I would say like the average is like 6'6", right? Something like that. I don't know. I mean, they got some, that's probably ignorant of me to say. They got some really tall women, but she's one of she definitely stands out. I mean, she was the star on the Olympic team in Tokyo last year. She has the leverage to become a really big mega star in popular culture and stuff like that. And it's just not happened yet for her for whatever reason. I mean, I think she's relatively well known, but it looks like the WNBA is not going to raise their salaries because they don't have any extra income coming in. And it's on her to make herself more popular.
Exactly. They have to make their league more marketable. They have to bring in more audience. That's what it's all about. It's about the ticket sales. And if they're only generating $60 million a year, these other big advertisers and like Nike and Reebok and stuff like that, they're going to stick with what they got. They might float the WNBA some money because, they can, but they're not going to invest big dollars. People do not want to invest big dollars to only see a $60 million per year return. And the only way for the WNBA to increase its marketability is for the women who play in the NBA to get out there and help make it more marketable. Instead of going over to fucking Russia and wherever else they go to play, they need to be staying their asses here and putting the time and the effort to build something that's great. If Michael Jordan hadn't gone out and made his brand and done everything and become a cultural icon off the court, we would see a vastly disparate NBA.
Yeah. He was really the breakthrough star, and you saw LeBron, also coming after him and having, a similar level of stardom. But the way it was paid for him. Are you talking specifically in salary that
Yes, I
Jordan
mean
brought the salary up?
when you
Yeah.
start looking at when you start looking at what Jordan did and how he was able to position himself to command the amount of money that he commanded later on in his career, right? Like after that point when he signed that deal and he started becoming more and more popular and famous and everything like that, why do you think that salaries around that time started to increase? Like I would say right around the time that Michael Jordan started becoming big and that brand started to grow out, he started to show people that you can do the same thing. You can go out there and you can build a brand, you can make yourself an influence, and you can make yourself somebody who is indispensable to a team. Right? Like when you talk about LeBron James, why does LeBron James command so much money? Because anywhere he goes, he takes fans with him. When he left Cleveland, there were Cleveland fans who were like, I'm no longer a Cleveland fan. I want to watch the LA Lakers, or I want to watch the Miami Heat. I'm serious. There were people who aren't even who are diehard Cavaliers fans who bought a Miami Heat jersey the moment that LeBron James set foot on the court. Ain't nobody doing that for no Brittany Griner. I'm sorry. And that's the reality of it. That's why she doesn't make as much money as LeBron James. It's just like when I hear somebody say, oh, these women actresses need to get paid as much as the men in a movie and shit like that. It's like, why? Some of them are just there because they're a co-star. They didn't sign Robert Downey Jr. to bring they brought Robert Downey Jr. in, number one, because he's Robert Downey Jr. And then whoever the people are after that, so be it. But they're still going to get their money off Robert Downey Jr. They invest in these people, they bring them in and stuff like that, and that's what happens. Now, I'm not saying that women shouldn't be compensated, but when you're talking about, oh, Robert Downey Jr. negotiated $30 million and the female co-star only got 15, I can see why. Easily replaceable. You can't replace a Robert Downey Jr. You can find other women. You can't find another Robert Downey Jr.
Ooh, be careful now. You can find other women. I don't think you can find another Angelina Jolie.
Who's casting Angelina Jolie for a lot of movies these days? Please, no one's beating down that woman's door to put her in a movie.
Yeah, I mean, not as much because she's older now. But like, there's certain female actors. That's a provocative discussion. Let's just say that.
When you put it like this, for instance, it's like if we were to get together a men's and women's basketball team, right? Yeah. And you said Brittany Griner and LeBron James are going to be on the same team. Who the fuck is who are people going to buy tickets to go see?
Well, the WNBA fans would come to see Brittany Griner, and the NBA fans come to see LeBron. But for the most part, people know LeBron better. But I think you have to distinguish between the fans. I mean, there would be certain people who are big Brittany Griner fans and stuff like that.
If you had 100,000 people in that stadium, you're telling me that it would be divided 50-50 between LeBron James fans and Brittany Griner fans?
No, I didn't say that.
Okay, then we need to focus back on the part where people are coming to watch LeBron James and not Brittany Griner. Do you get what I'm saying? That's why they're not making the same amount of money. And I'm not saying that if they cast an Angelina Jolie for the lead in a movie that they could replace her because she's the lead in the fucking movie, right?
Well, you also
obviously they're not going to have some man come. They're not going to have another Robert Downey Jr. come in and steal the show, right? They're going to find somebody who's not as big of a star as her, but somebody who can bring in some extra fans because they don't want her eclipsed in the performance, and she doesn't want to be eclipsed in the performance. But if they're casting Robert Downey Jr. in a movie, and then you're saying, oh well, Scarlett Johansson deserves the same amount of money, I'm sorry, Scarlett Johansson didn't even get her own standalone fucking movie until Black Widow after her role was completely kaput. Yeah, and they could have recasted her at any fucking point in time, just like Rhodey. They had no problem getting rid of Terrence Howard's ass.
Today, Scarlett Johansson is as big a star as Robert Downey. We agree, right?
No. I would say she's a star, but definitely not as big as Robert Downey Jr. I can guarantee, a lot of people know her, but if we're talking about sheer numbers and star power and stuff like that, like her influence in the movie, like I said, she could have been easily replaced in all of them. In her Black Widow character could have easily been replaced. They could have had her go with anybody, right? Seriously, think about that.
Possibly. I mean, not.
But you can't recast Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, because he's famous for his own style. He he's Iron Man, obviously the Iron Man franchise.
He
But
made the Iron Man franchise. Scarlett Johansson
he
did
was
not
great.
make Black Widow. She fit the role. She
Yeah.
played it well. She did a good job. But if they had recast her because she wanted more money or because she just didn't want to do it anymore, I could easily see three different actresses that would fit that role. Period. Florence Pugh plays the White Widow now, so she could have been Black Widow. You get what I'm
So
saying?
they,
And I'm not saying
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
all women are interchangeable. Obviously, they couldn't have got some hack actress from nowhere. They needed somebody with some fucking star power. But my point is
Mhm.
that when you build a movie around, build a sports franchise, anything like that, you building it around what fans are going to come watch and see.
Yeah, yeah. I also think it's cool that we're almost wearing the same glasses. Have you noticed that? They're kind of squarish kind of
Yeah.
looking. Yeah.
Anyway, all right, let's
Not
move
that
into
we're
the MLB.
squares. We're not squares.
Let's move into the MLB lockout. Since we're talking about
Yeah.
money and all of that stuff, you can go ahead and lead this one off.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Brandon. The MLB lockout, everybody, ended today, right? It was last night today. It ended, and we're going ahead with a full 162 game season. Now, things have been delayed slightly where, players are going to report to spring training. I think it's Sunday, it's coming up. Then the spring training is going to start on the 17th or the 18th of March. And then the regular season is going to start on April 7th. So basically, we lost a week or two series worth of baseball from what the season was originally scheduled for. So, what do you think about that, Brandon?
I mean, personally, I really don't even care about baseball at this point in my life anymore. I mean, it seems like
Nah,
every other season we have a lockout, a disagreement about pay and salary, and quite frankly, the game is long
right.
and boring to watch. And I really don't care anymore. You know what I mean? Like
I got you.
they can all go fly a kite, do whatever it is that they want to do, cry about their salaries and stuff like that. Like, oh, the minimum salary went from $500,000 to $600,000 or something like that, and it's ridiculous. The average American isn't even making that much money. The people who are cleaning the stadium aren't making nearly as much money. The people who wash their clothes and do all the laundry and make sure their uniforms are nice, make sure their locker rooms clean, make sure the facility's running right. You know what I mean? All those people, those people in those hourly jobs, they don't care about them. That money that they're getting and stuff like that, they weren't advocating for them. They weren't sitting there going, "Oh, they need a pay raise too. That's why we need to come. Y'all need to come up off more money." They don't give a fuck about none of those people. They don't. All they care about is making their millions. And quite frankly, if we didn't even if the whole baseball season was lost because of the lockout, I wouldn't care. I don't care about baseball anymore. I'm sorry. It's a bunch of greedy assholes. And I'm about done with pro sports in general. Right. Like I'll keep up with the
Ooh,
scores. I'll still talk shit and everything like that about it. But as far as like actually caring about the whole goal of it and putting my faith and my effort into caring about these teams and stuff like that, like I really don't anymore. I'm starting to not care because they're making me not care with their disputes about money.
okay. Yeah, I'm totally with you on the fact that the players making 30 million, even $10 million a year in Major League Baseball didn't have a reason to suspend the season and to, push for better terms and stuff like that. I mean, it seemed like a lot of it for the players was about service time and the players who aren't arbitration eligible. So if you're like, a rookie, or if you're in your first 3 years of playing in the bigs, you're not arbitration eligible because you need a certain amount of service time or years in the league before you can negotiate your salary in arbitration. And so what they were trying to do was say, hey, this is a tool. Before you're eligible for arbitration, service time is a tool used by the owners to keep those younger players, those players with not a lot of service time, from getting big money contracts. And the way some of these guys been paid, Mike Trout getting a 13-year contract with 40 million a year and stuff like that. I can understand why the owners, they want to keep the contracts elsewhere down, because this one guy is making, possibly on some teams, he's making a third of the payroll. This one guy. So he's playing on the Angels, so they probably have a bigger payroll, but he's making like a fourth of their payroll, which is it's crazy because then the rest of the team, you've got, you got 20 players, 25 players. What are they making? So the guys on the lower end of the totem pole, are making, $500,000 and a million-ish. And, honestly, that's a lot of money to be playing baseball, isn't it, Brandon?
I mean, a lot of these people are making more money than anybody should be making playing a game, right? Like,
yeah.
but that's fine. But when I hear them cry about it and complain about, oh, we're not making enough money, I want more money, I want this, I want that. Like, I don't care. Even the service time argument, I don't care, because they're still making more money than me playing a game. Their contribution to society is zero. They are not producing not a damn thing. They're not creating jobs. They're not creating a product. They don't have a service. They have nothing. They go out and they play a sport. That's it. It's purely entertainment. It's not even needed in our fucking society. It's not even necessary. If we got rid of pro baseball as a thing, guess what? No one would miss it. Guaranteed. Because you'd still have the college, you still have high school, you still have other ways to watch baseball, play baseball, but because it's been ingrained in our society, it has to be there. It has to be making millions of dollars. So at the end of the day, none of these pro athletes, in my opinion, deserve to be making what they're making. I'm not saying they shouldn't make the money. I'm just saying they don't deserve it. I'm saying that if we're being real in the realm of reality, they shouldn't be making more than $10 million a year. Period. I don't care. We can sit here and cry about, we can sit here and cribble, they can sit here and cry about, oh, well, I need more money and the service time got to be less. They're all doing what they're all, quote unquote, getting paid to do something they love. And while the rest of us are fucking miserable watching these assholes complain about their lives. Complain about, oh, we have to be in the league so many years before we can get a multi-million-dollar contract like Mike Trout. Give a fuck about that. How much money are you making in relationship to the average person? Think about that shit before you go on a lockout. Think about the guy who's cleaning your underwear and washing all your fucking dirty laundry and shit like that, making sure your little funky ass locker room is nice and neat when you come in there every day and stuff like that. Think about the little $20 an hour he's making, and then you're sitting there turning around crying because you're only making $500,000 a year, or you can't negotiate for $1 million contract. Get the fuck out of my face with that shit. Anyway, let's move on. I'm sorry.
Powerful. I like it. And I agree with it. So that's fine.
Anyway, Calvin Ridley gets a 1-year suspension for gambling on pro football. A lot of the reactions, some people were like, "Oh, it's too harsh." It's just gambling. It's not like he beat his wife, or he didn't do this or he didn't do that. But at the same time, I want to know what you think. What do you think about the 1-year suspension for Calvin Ridley gambling on pro football?
Well, again, like you mentioned, it's a 1-year suspension and not a lifetime ban. Like I believe, Pete Rose, the famous case, he bet on his own games that he was managing during the 80s with the Reds, and the commissioner banned him from the game for life. And he hasn't been able to get into the Hall of Fame, which his playing career says he deserves. So, for this guy, I think the law is pretty strict on it, right? I mean, can't bet on your own team to lose, basically, or whatever. You can't bet on your own team, something like that, right? So I mean, he gets a 1-year ban. Yeah, it's 1 year out of his career, and that definitely hurts. That definitely hurts him. But I think it's appropriate. I totally think it is. Listen, he knew what the rule was, right? Like we all talk about, like Brittany Griner going over to Russia. She knew what the situation was over there. Yeah, she didn't anticipate the war in Ukraine. She didn't anticipate that going on while she was there and making it.
But it's still Russia, though. You know what I mean? Like it's still Russia.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, like the big idea there. It's right in her face. I mean, maybe when she's playing, not many players get up to her face level or get up to her. But this one's right there.
Yeah.
Like you're going over to, first of all, you're going over there to make millions of dollars because you can't make it here. And you're taking blood money from those oligarchs and those corrupt, scummy people over there. Nothing against Russians as a people, but those rich, industrial industrialists who are willing to pay those salaries, who have earned that money through possibly illicit means. So you're going over there knowing that. That's A. B, you're going to a country where I don't know if I can make it home safe. I might get something like this happening.
That's why you won't catch me visiting certain places in Mexico, certain places in the Middle East, certain places in Africa, certain places in Australia, certain places in Europe, certain places anywhere. There are certain places you just don't fucking go in the world because you may never come back. And Russia is the entire, like, if you have no official fucking business over there, you shouldn't go. You should not go. If you're not being sent by the government, you shouldn't go. I don't care. I do not care. If you have a job that's like, we need you to take a trip to Russia, no, I'm not going. I quit that fucking day.
Yeah. You mentioned Australia.
There's certain places everywhere you shouldn't go, man. Certain places everywhere. Certain places in America you shouldn't go. Certain neighborhoods, certain parts of the country, just you should not go. It's not filled with good people there. It's not a whole lot of good that comes out of visiting certain places in the world, for real. Like, you can be kidnapped in some places in the Middle East. There are some places in Australia where you might get robbed and murdered. Same with Africa. You might get kidnapped, robbed, murdered. I'm not saying all of Africa, but there are some places in Africa where it's not exactly a tourist known location. And if you go there, you better watch the fuck out. It's just like when these people go on mission trips and stuff like that and then come up missing. It's like, you're the one who wanted to go to this desolate area and fuck around in the woods somewhere where nobody knew who you were. Right? Like, I have no sympathy for you. I feel bad that it happened. Yeah, but that's life. Bad shit happens.
Absolutely. Have you seen the movie Silence by any chance?
I have not.
Now now to carry ourselves into another cinematic reference. This is the movie by Scorsese, starring Andrew Garfield, where he plays a Portuguese missionary, Christian Portuguese missionary, Catholic probably, I messed it up, who goes to Japan in the 1500s or something like that, because one of the Portuguese priests was over there, played by Liam Neeson, is over there, and he hasn't come back. They kept him there because, I don't know what he was doing. What the Portuguese thought that they were going to go over there and convert Japanese people, and he was over there doing that. So he's being detained over there, kind of like Brittany Griner, and he goes over there to just see if he could rescue him or something like that. And then they take him in, and then they make him. I won't ruin the whole story, but basically, the balls that it takes, like, to think you're going to go to a foreign country, way out there. You're not going to, India or Pakistan or something like that. You're going to Japan, where, it's a very, I'll just say, strict society, right? Even then. And, so this is kind of like what that movie kind of symbolized, this whole thing where, some people are naive and they think that, just because they're a professional basketball player, or they think that they're great, that they can go to a foreign country and that the people in the foreign country are going to think the same thing. Right, Brandon? I mean,
look, let's wrap this up. We got to keep going for the sake of time. Anyway, but yeah, I get what you're saying there. It's totally, there's some, like I said, there's some places and some things that you do at your own risk and your own peril. And Calvin Ridley, Brittany Griner, they did their own shit. They got in trouble for it, and that's that. Anyway, so two big trades this week happened in the NFL: Carson Wentz and Russ Wilson. Russ went to Denver, and Carson went to the Washington Commanders. Who do you think got the better deal?
Oh, well, I think Wentz got a bad deal because now he's on the Commanders, and that's the worst. That's the worst team.
So he's the biggest loser. He's the biggest loser to me.
Yeah, man. Listen. I think it's pretty clear. That the whoever got Russell Wilson, the Broncos, they got Russell Wilson. That makes them a contender now. They got the better deal. Simply for the fact that, Carson Wentz was once in the MVP discussion, probably in 2017 or something like that. But now, 4 years later, he's a guy that, kind of ran himself out of Philadelphia, where they loved him, and has been kind of unpredictable, hasn't he, Brandon?
Yeah, he's definitely been inconsistent, and he's definitely not living up to his promise. All the talent and all the gifts and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I think last season he played rather decently, but at the same time, you know, the Colts were willing to part ways with him for some draft picks, So obviously they were willing to roll the dice on him without him. So, that leads me to believe that, they didn't see a whole lot more upside from him. They saw what they needed to see. And then the Commanders came in with a, very lucrative trade deal for them. And they were like, we're going to jump on it because it's just better than what we currently got. You know what I mean? So yeah, I do think the Broncos got the better end of the deal. I mean, but it'll be interesting to see how well Russ Wilson plays away from Pete Carroll. Like that's going to be where I feel like, there might be the biggest difference, because now we're going to see, Russ away from a Pete Carroll offense where Pete Carroll has definitely, called plays that Russ can do, and they have this kind of synergy and stuff like that. So how is that going to translate into this next season for him playing with the Broncos? And he is getting older. How much longer can he hold out? How he got hurt this last season and he was out for a big part of it. I want to say like maybe 6 weeks or something like that with that finger injury, and he came back a little bit early. But the Seahawks seem to have, kind of gone down on a slide. And I'm not going to say it's his fault. That offense was stagnant. They needed to make a change and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see, what they do at quarterback. But at the end of the day, I do think the Broncos got the better end of that trade. I think like you said, they're contenders now. They're legit contenders. They're going to have some fun next season.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you put a team that's they were mediocre last year and put them into contender for Super Bowl status, I mean, it's a big story. It's kind of like what happened to Tampa Bay when Brady went there. Listen, it's kind of the same situation. You got Brady. Brady and Wilson are two different guys, but Brady played his whole career with Belichick. He made his name in New England, and now he wants to prove, and that's the big part of this for Russell as well, is he wants to prove that without a great head coach or the one that he's been with his whole career, and he can succeed, and that he can go there and win a Super Bowl. So it's going to be interesting. I heard maybe that Von Miller from the championship LA Rams wants to join him. So, and he'll be going back to Denver where he used to play. So
that'd be wild. It was like, why did Denver even make the trade if they're just going to sign him back after, like what was the point of making the trade in the first place? They should have just kept him, signed him to another deal. I mean, anyway. All right. So last topic, we're going to talk some Giants football. The Giants have been flirting around with the idea of bringing in Mitch Trubisky as a backup. And then, the Sterling Shepard thing, I think Sterling Shepard, they got a deal done. They restructured his deal. He's taking a little bit less money. So Sterling Shepard's going to stay. Should the Giants bring in Mitch Trubisky, and what should they do with Evan Ingram? Go.
Okay. All right, Brandon. I'm going to say that they should, because, the last 3 years, they've had Daniel Jones, and he's struggled mightily. I mean, he has not improved a lick, in my opinion. I mean, he might have improved from his first practice to this third year or whatever, but, there's been some improvement in terms of, I mean, there has to be. You're playing in the NFL or whatever, but he has really not shown that he can make a significant improvement and become a viable NFL quarterback. So now you bring in a guy like Trubisky. He's another young guy. He's going to, just the fact that they're both young guys and they play the same position. You bring this guy on the team, you know that he's not a high-end talent who's going to take you to the next level, but maybe, just maybe, he pushes Jones a bit. Maybe Jones takes as, hey, there's somebody breathing down my neck over here. I'm going to play a little bit better. What do you think?
All right. So to end the show, I will end the show with this statement here, and I'll be brief. I think bringing in Mitch Trubisky is a bad fucking idea. I think Daniel Jones is their backup quarterback for the future, and they should just pull somebody in from the draft sign him to a minimum rookie deal. And if they can deal Daniel Jones somewhere in the season because of an injury, get rid of him and then start from scratch, because that's where we're at right now. We're already at zero. We're already at nothing, right? Daniel Jones, like you said, hasn't improved. He hasn't done anything. He tripped 10 yards from the end zone running. Okay. That's the highlight of Daniel Jones's career. That's what everybody remembers of Daniel Jones. Okay. I think bringing in Mitch Trubisky is not going to do anything better. I don't believe it's going to inspire Daniel Jones to play better. I don't. I really don't. It's like saying we're going to put 2 broken clocks on the wall, because at least with 2 broken clocks, one of them's got to be right twice a day, right? Like that's not how the world works. And then I think what they should do is keep Evan Ingram and move him into the slot, because he's a shit blocker. And I think part of the problem is that he's not adjusting. He's not meant to be in this league as a blocker, as a tight end. Right? Like he needs to be out there catching balls and focusing on catching balls, running routes, improving his route running. Okay. That's why I think his biggest problem is that he's doing too much trying to learn to block and trying to become a better blocker and stuff like that. And that's what his problem is. That's why he's dropping all these damn balls, because he's trying to improve that aspect of his game. So he's not focusing on his route running, his pass catching and stuff like that, because, I've got the pass catching and the route running. I've got to focus on blocking, becoming a better blocker, because the Giants like to run the football. They need to run the football. They have Saquon Barkley, right? At least for now they have Saquon. So they have Saquon Barkley. So when they run off his side, he's got to be able to block. He's got to be in on those plays, blocking and learning to block. You know what I'm saying? So I think moving him into that third slot receiver spot is where they need to do. Anyway, that is our show for tonight. Thank you for watching, everybody. As always, I'm Brandon. Anthony, take it easy. Have a good night.
All right. Bye, guys.